$20. Jessica, that's all she had left. The lawyer's office reverberated with the harsh, scathing laughter of my brother Nathan. I guess we know who the favorite really was. Vanessa, my sister, grinned and joined in, her immaculately manicured nails tapping on the mahogany table. Well, at least now we can stop pretending Grandma Eleanor loved us all equally. I gripped the little inheritance check, which felt like a smack across my face, while I sat there in startled stillness. Mr. Harold Blackwood, the lawyer, cleared his throat uneasily while my siblings persisted in their jeering. The sophisticated Blackwood and Associates legal office felt oppressive around me, with its dark wood paneling and leather-bound volumes attesting to my embarrassment. Jessica Collins is my name. I recently found out that, at the age of 25, my dear grandma had allegedly valued me at precisely $20. I received what was essentially lunch money, while Vanessa received the $200,000 jewelry collection and Nathan inherited the $800,000 family house. With his wife Patricia laughing next to him, Nathan went on, "Perhaps she believed that you could purchase a personality with that, or even better, some self-respect. Because they reflected the same vicious treatment I had received my whole life, the comments struck a deep chord. I was always the odd one out in my family when I was growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was the reserved bookworm who liked libraries over parties, while Vanessa enchanted everyone with her looks and Nathan thrived in business. Grandma Eleanor became our guardian when my parents passed away in a car accident when I was 15. She had been my rock for 10 years, the only one who appeared to get me. Or so I believed. Vanessa exclaimed, "This is just embarrassing," as she tossed her blonde hair over her shoulder. What sort of message does this convey really? $20 for a granddaughter? Mr. Blackwood's gray eyes darted between the papers and my tear-streaked face as he shuffled uneasily in his chair. I was too distraught to completely comprehend it, but there was something strange and almost guilty about his look. With his pricey suit as immaculate as ever, Nathan reclined on his leather chair. Well, at least there is no need to be concerned about Jessica arguing over anything. What will she stand up for? Her valuable $20? Once more, their laughing filled the room, and I felt my heart shatter. The only person who really understood me, supported my aspirations to become a teacher, and listened to my tales about my pioneerist elementary pupils was Grandma Eleanor. How could she have harmed me like this? How could I get such a heartbreaking message from the woman who used to call me her little star? I was looking at the check when a horrible notion started to cross my head. Perhaps I wasn't worth loving in the first place. The embarrassment followed me home to my small apartment on the outskirts of Charlotte, where I replayed the event repeatedly for the remainder of the evening. Nathan and Vanessa's texts, each more scathing than the last, buzzed across my phone. "Hope you can afford dinner with your inheritance," Nathan had wrote. Even worse was Vanessa's message. "Maybe Grandma was trying to tell you something about your worth." Despite everything, I had always felt that Grandma Eleanor recognized something unique in me. She had taken over without hesitation after my parents passed away, bringing 3 distraught children into her expansive Victorian house on Elm Street. Even still, the partiality was clear. At 32, Nathan was the eldest and was prepared to take over North Spire Textiles, the family's textile company. Vanessa, who is now 28 years old, received a lot of attention because of her social connections and beauty. But I had always found time with Grandma Eleanor. In her yard, we would converse about books and dreams for hours on end. Even when Nathan mocked my decision to become a teacher, she supported my education. "Money isn't everything, my dear Jessica," she used to remark. "Education molds hearts and minds. Building a legacy like that is worthwhile." Now those words seemed like falsehoods. 2 weeks before to her unexpected heart attack, I recalled our most recent talk. Her demeanor had changed, almost urgent. "Jessica, my love, there are aspects of our family that you will eventually need to comprehend. Vital information that Vanessa and Nathan are unaware of." Upon inquiring about her meaning, she only grinned and replied, "All in due time, little star." My sad recollections were interrupted when the phone rang. It was Caroline, my college best friend. "I've heard about the will reading, Jessica. Are you all right?" I sobbed as I told her about the $20 and the hurtful laughing of my brothers. Caroline attentively listened as each detail made her voice more irritated. "That doesn't sound like your grandmother at all," she firmly stated. "The Eleanor I met throughout my stay always talked so proudly about you. Recall last year's teaching award you received. She only phoned to boast about you." Little consolation was offered by her remarks. The facts were straightforward. Nathan would go on managing the family company after inheriting the mansion. Vanessa received the jewels and continued to indulge in upscale shopping and charity luncheons. And Grandma Eleanor gave me $20, which seems to represent my actual value. I was lying in bed that night, looking up at the ceiling of my small flat, which served as my home office, with teaching materials strewn all over the place. I would have to pretend everything was normal while my life fell apart in order to face my Pinehurst elementary kids tomorrow. The telegram I received from the lady I had loved the most in the world seemed like the ultimate betrayal. An unexpected phone call the next morning would completely alter the course of events. As I was finishing up my third cup of coffee and marking papers, I heard Mr. Blackwood's voice on my phone, sounded especially nervous. "Miss Collins, you must return to my office right away. Something has changed in relation to your grandmother's will." My heart began to race. "What kind of development?" "I would like to talk about this face to face. Are you able to arrive in an hour?" I agreed to see him despite being alarmed by the urgency in his voice. My thoughts were racing with potential solutions as I drove back to the legal office. Had Vanessa and Nathan taken any action to challenge the will? Were they attempting to confiscate even my small sum of $20? When I arrived, Mr. Blackwood was pacing behind his desk, his usually composed demeanor completely shattered. Papers were scattered across his mahogany desk, and his gray hair looked disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. "Miss Collins, please sit down. I owe you a tremendous apology." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" He picked up a thick manila envelope, his hands trembling slightly. "Yesterday, after you and your siblings left, I was organizing your grandmother's papers when I discovered this hidden in her personal safe deposit box. It's marked for Jessica's eyes only and dated just 1 week before her death." The envelope felt heavy in my hands, heavier than $20 had any right to feel. My name was written across the front in Grandma Eleanor's familiar handwriting, along with strict instructions that it should only be opened in Mr. Blackwood's presence. "Your grandmother was very specific about the timing of this," he explained, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses nervously. "The public will reading was to happen first, followed by this private meeting. She wanted your siblings to reveal their true characters before you learned the truth." My hands shook as I broke the wax seal. Inside was a letter written in Grandma Eleanor's careful script, along with several legal documents that made my head spin. As I read her words, the room seemed to tilt on its axis. "My dearest Jessica, the letter began, if you're reading this, then you've endured the public humiliation I orchestrated. I know this seems cruel, but I needed you to see Nathan and Vanessa's true nature without any pretense. The $20 was symbolic, my little star, representing the very first money I ever earned as a young woman. It was never about the amount." The letter continued to explain that the real inheritance was far more complex: hidden trusts, secret investments, and family assets that neither Nathan nor Vanessa knew existed. Grandma Eleanor had been playing a much longer game than any of us realized. Mr. Blackwood watched my face as understanding dawned. "Miss Collins, your grandmother was a remarkably clever woman. She wanted to ensure her true legacy went to the person who would honor it properly." As I continued reading, one phrase stood out above all others: "Everything else is yours, my dear Jessica. Nathan and Vanessa have shown you exactly who they are. Now it's time for them to learn who you really are." The documents in front of me revealed a truth so staggering that I had to read them 3 times before my mind could process what I was seeing. Grandma Eleanor hadn't just left me $20. She had left me everything that truly mattered, hidden behind a web of legal maneuvers that had taken her years to construct. "Your grandmother established multiple trust funds starting 20 years ago," Mr. Blackwood explained, spreading the papers across his desk. "The mansion your brother inherited comes with a massive mortgage and tax burden that will bankrupt him within 2 years. The jewelry your sister received? Mostly convincing replicas. The real pieces are in a safety deposit box registered to you. My head was spinning. But how is that possible? Nathan's been managing the family business for years under your grandmother's supervision. Yes, but the actual ownership of Northspire Textiles was transferred to a trust in your name 5 years ago. Nathan has been essentially managing your company, though he doesn't know it yet. The letter from Grandma Eleanor explained everything in her precise handwriting. She had watched Nathan grow increasingly arrogant and money-obsessed after college, treating employees poorly and making decisions based solely on profit. Vanessa had become shallow and materialistic, burning through money on designer clothes and luxury vacations without any thought for the future. But you, my little star, the letter continued, remained kind despite how they treated you. You chose a profession that serves others rather than yourself. You've lived modestly and saved your money, never asking me for financial help, even when I knew you were struggling. You're the granddaughter I can trust with the family legacy. Mr. Blackwood pulled out another set of documents. There's more, Miss Collins. Your grandmother also owned significant real estate investments across Charlotte, including the building where your school is located. She's been anonymously donating to education charities for decades. All of this now belongs to you, with a total estimated value of $4.2 million. I felt dizzy. $4.2 million. Yesterday, I was a struggling elementary school teacher living paycheck to paycheck. And today, I was a millionaire. But the money wasn't what shocked me most. It was the realization that Grandma Eleanor had been testing all of us, watching and waiting to see who we really were when we thought no one was looking. There's one final component, Mr. Blackwood said, his voice growing serious. Your grandmother requested that Nathan and Vanessa be informed of the true situation exactly 48 hours after the initial will reading. She wanted them to have time to show their true colors before learning about their mistake. My phone had been buzzing all morning with messages from my siblings. Nathan had already started making plans to sell the mansion and expand the business. Vanessa was posting pictures on social media of herself wearing what she thought were priceless family heirlooms. They had no idea they were living in a house of cards that was about to collapse. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now, Miss Collins, you decide what kind of person you want to be. Your grandmother has given you the power to either help your siblings or let them face the consequences of their choices. The mansion comes with a $300,000 mortgage that Nathan can't afford on his salary. Vanessa's jewelry is worth maybe $5,000 total. Without the income from the textile business they think they own, they'll both be in serious financial trouble within months. As I sat there processing this information, I thought about Nathan's cruel laughter and Vanessa's cutting remarks. They had shown me exactly how they felt about me when they thought I was powerless. Now the tables had turned completely, and they had no idea what was coming. That evening, I drove past the family mansion on Elm Street, watching Nathan and Patricia through the large windows as they celebrated their inheritance with expensive wine. They had no idea that the mortgage payments would start coming due next month, or that the property taxes alone would consume most of Nathan's salary from what he thought was his textile company. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. For years, Nathan had mocked my choice to live in a modest apartment while he enjoyed the luxuries of the family home. He had made jokes about my poor teacher's salary and suggested I should have chosen a more practical career. Now I owned assets worth millions while he was drowning in debt he didn't even know existed. Vanessa had invited me to lunch the next day, probably planning to gloat about her jewelry inheritance. I accepted, curious to see how far she would push her advantage. We met at Magnolia Bistro, an upscale restaurant in the heart of Charlotte, where Vanessa loved to be seen. "Jessica, darling," she said with fake sweetness, her wrist dripping with what she believed were priceless family diamonds. "I know yesterday was hard for you, but perhaps Grandma Eleanor was trying to teach you about your place in the family." I sipped my coffee calmly, watching her perform. The jewelry she was wearing so proudly was worth less than my monthly rent, but she had no idea. The real family diamonds were sitting in a safety deposit box that only I could access. "You know," Vanessa continued, admiring her reflection in the restaurant window, "Nathan and I were thinking, Since you obviously can't afford to visit the family plot to pay respects to Grandma Eleanor, we'd be happy to go on your behalf. For a small fee, of course, say $20. She laughed at her own cruel joke. That's very generous of you, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Inside, I was documenting every word, every sneer, every demonstration of the callousness that Grandma Eleanor had wanted me to witness. Nathan called me that afternoon, his voice full of false concern. Jessica, I've been thinking about your situation. $20 isn't much to start a new life with. If you need help, maybe I could offer you a job at the textile factory. Nothing fancy, mind you. Maybe packaging or cleaning, something more suited to your, skill level. The condescension in his voice was breathtaking. He was offering me a minimum wage job at my own company, completely unaware that he was essentially an employee who could be fired at any moment. I'll think about it, I told him, biting back the urge to reveal the truth right then and there. That night, I met with Mr. Blackwood again to finalize the paperwork. Tomorrow would mark exactly 48 hours since the will reading, which meant it was time for Nathan and Vanessa to learn the truth. But I had been thinking about Grandma Eleanor's final test, and I realized there was one more lesson she wanted me to learn. Mr. Blackwood, I said as we reviewed the documents, I want to modify the approach slightly. Instead of just telling them the truth, I want to give them one final chance to show who they really are. He raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? I want to call a family meeting. Tell them there's been a complication with the will, that maybe there was an error in the paperwork. See if they'll offer to help me or if they'll try to protect their own interests. And if they fail this final test, I thought about their cruelty, their mocking laughter, their complete lack of empathy for what they thought was my devastating loss. Then they'll learn exactly how much Grandma Eleanor valued loyalty and kindness over greed and pride. The family meeting was set for Saturday morning at Mr. Blackwood's office. I had called Nathan and Vanessa separately, explaining that there might be some issues with the will that needed to be resolved. Both had agreed to come, though Nathan had grumbled about wasting his weekend on Jessica's problems. I arrived early, my stomach churning with nervous energy. Mr. Blackwood had prepared 2 sets of documents, the real one showing my inheritance and a fake set suggesting there had been an error that might invalidate parts of the will. We wanted to see how my siblings would react if they thought their inheritances might be at risk. Nathan arrived first, strutting into the office like he owned it. He was already making plans for the mansion, talking about renovations and possibly converting it into rental properties. I mean, if there's really a problem with Jessica's $20, that's unfortunate, but we can't let it hold up legitimate business decisions. Vanessa swept in 10 minutes later, wearing what she thought were family emeralds, but were actually costume jewelry worth less than $50. I hope this won't take long, she said, checking her reflection in her compact mirror. I have a spa appointment at 2. Mr. Blackwood cleared his throat and began his performance. Thank you all for coming. I'm afraid there's been a complication regarding the will. It appears there may have been some procedural errors in how the inheritances were documented. Nathan immediately tensed. What kind of errors? The type that could potentially invalidate certain portions of the will, Mr. Blackwood explained carefully. In the worst-case scenario, the entire estate might need to be redistributed equally among all 3 siblings. The change in the room was immediate and telling. Nathan's face went red with anger, while Vanessa's hand instinctively went to her jewelry as if someone might snatch it away. That's ridiculous, Nathan snapped. I've already started making business decisions based on my inheritance. You can't just change the rules now. Actually, Mr. Blackwood continued, there's a possibility that if the will is invalidated, everything would be split 3 ways. That would mean Miss Jessica would receive approximately $1.4 million instead of $20. I watched my siblings' faces carefully. This was their moment to show grace, to perhaps express happiness that I might receive a fair share after all. Instead, what I saw was pure, undisguised panic and selfishness. No, absolutely not, Vanessa said, her voice rising. Jessica doesn't deserve anything close to that amount. She didn't put in the work Nathan and I did to earn Grandma's favor. Nathan nodded vigorously. Exactly. If there's really a problem with the will, then we need to fight it properly. Make sure the original intent is preserved. Jessica getting over $1 million would be a complete miscarriage of justice. What if I told you, I said quietly, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived, that I was willing to give up any claim to additional inheritance? That I was happy with just the $20? Both of them looked relieved, but neither offered to share even a small portion of what they thought they'd inherited. Not a single dollar. Not even an acknowledgement that $20 was an insulting amount for a granddaughter who had loved and cared for our grandmother. That would be the right thing to do, Nathan said pompously. It shows you understand your place in the family. Very mature of you, Jessica, Vanessa added with fake approval. Mr. Blackwood looked at me, and I nodded. It was time to end the charade. My siblings had failed their final test so completely that I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Actually, Mr. Blackwood said, his voice taking on a completely different tone, there is no error in the will. What I've just witnessed is exactly what Eleanor Collins anticipated would happen. He pulled out the real documents, spreading them across the conference table like a winning poker hand. Miss Jessica Collins, your grandmother left you everything of real value. The mansion Nathan inherited comes with a $300,000 mortgage. The jewelry Vanessa received consists primarily of reproductions. And most importantly, Nathan, you don't own North Spire Textiles. Jessica does. The silence in the room was deafening. Nathan's face went through several shades of red before settling on a sickly pale color. Vanessa's hand flew to her throat, touching the necklace she'd been wearing so proudly. That's impossible, Nathan whispered. Your grandmother spent 5 years transferring assets into a trust designated for Jessica. The real family jewelry, worth approximately $200,000, is in a safety deposit box registered to your sister, the textile company, the investment properties, the charitable foundations. Jessica now controls assets worth over $4 million. Vanessa started hyperventilating. But I've been wearing these pieces to every social event in Charlotte. Everyone knows they're the Collins family jewels. Unfortunately, you've been wearing very convincing fakes. Your grandmother had the real pieces replaced years ago. Nathan slammed his fist on the table. This is fraud. Grandma Eleanor was manipulated. Jessica must have influenced her somehow. Mr. Blackwood's expression turned ice cold. Mr. Collins, your grandmother was of sound mind until the day she died. She documented every decision thoroughly, including her reasons. She wanted to ensure her legacy went to the granddaughter who embodied the values she held dear: kindness, humility, and genuine care for others. I sat quietly, watching my siblings' world crumble around them, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness that it had come to this. The revelation sent Nathan into a fury unlike anything I'd ever seen. He stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward, his face contorted with rage. You manipulative little snake. You knew about this all along, didn't you? Actually, I learned about it yesterday, I said calmly, just like you're learning about it now. Vanessa was frantically pulling off the jewelry, staring at each piece as if she could somehow will them to be real. This can't be happening. I've already promised this necklace to the museum for their charity auction next month. That would be donating fake jewelry to charity, Mr. Blackwood pointed out dryly, which could be considered fraud. Nathan started to pace like an animal in a cage. Next month, the mansion's mortgage payments will begin. My present costs are barely covered by my earnings from the textile industry. Jessica may dismiss me tomorrow if she controls the business. Despite the excitement pumping through my veins, I remarked, "That's an interesting concern," in a calm voice. Tell me, Nathan, how would you feel if someone who mocked your worth, called you worthless, and laughed at your pain suddenly controlled your livelihood? As the inference set in, his face became white. Vanessa attempted a new strategy, abruptly adopting a sisterly devotion and false tears. We were just having fun yesterday, Jessica, my love. We adore you, you know that. Family stays together, doesn't it? Like when you suggested I buy a personality with my $20? I inquired. Or when you told me Grandma Eleanor was sending me a message about my worth. Mr. Blackwood started to arrange the papers. You must now make a decision regarding your inheritance, Miss Collins. Since you have total authority over the textile business, you may decide whether or not to keep Nathan on staff. You also own a number of apartment buildings, a variety of financial portfolios, and the building that your school rents. 10 minutes later, the room seemed like a different world because of the drastic change in the power dynamic. During the next months, Nathan feverishly tried to keep up with the upkeep and mortgage payments for the mansion, and when he was unable to do so, the home was foreclosed upon. His haughtiness was replaced by the sobering truth of his situation when he was compelled to accept a position at a rival textile firm for half of his prior pay. Vanessa learned that her reputation in Charlotte's social circles had suffered as a result of the false jewelry. She also had to return to living with friends and work as a sales associate at a department store because she had no genuine inheritance to support her lifestyle. Both siblings discovered too late that what they believed to be most important had been lost due to their brutality and selfishness. I thought back on the amazing trip that had led me here as I sat in Grandma Eleanor's garden on a calm Sunday evening and watched the sunset paint the sky in tones of pink and gold. The truth about my siblings and the assurance that true love and compassion will always prevail over cruelty and selfishness were the best gifts I could have received from the woman I had assumed had rejected me. The fact that justice had been done in the very manner Grandma Eleanor had always intended made the retaliation sweeter than I could have ever dreamed, not because of the wealth or influence,